Retro VHS time. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review a movie that I would imagine most people in the civilized and even uncivilized or just anywhere in the world probably have never heard of this movie, and for good reason. I'm sure it doesn't have a very big reach, or didn't have a very big reach back in the 80s when I imagine it came out on home video. I came across this. I don't have the tape in here now because the box is all just rat-tattered and crap, but came across this previously viewed VHS of Survival. Is it Survival? Survival 1990, sometime, as you can see here by the price tag, after November 25th, 2001. Originally priced in October of 2001 at $4.99, and by November 25th they're like, fuck it, try to get rid of this for 99 cents, and sometime after that sticker was placed on here, I purchased this for 99 cents, coming at you to review the non-classic, non-blockbuster, unknown movie by the name of Survival 1990. So as I said, this movie came into my life sometime after November 25th, 2001, and life has never been the same. I probably haven't seen it since back then, honestly. I've decided this tape has been just sitting around for ages and ages, and just like with so many things in relation to this channel, I've been planning on, rewatching and reviewing this movie for this channel for actually years, and I finally, it's dead of winter, it's January, there's nothing to do, so I'm like, Tormented Beth, I got this VHS out. Tormented Beth, and my intention was to actually watch it with Beth and do a Nate and Beth audio review of it, and at the end of the movie, Beth's like, yeah, I've got nothing nothing to say after seeing it, and that's understandable. It's a very not whole hell of a lot going on kind of a movie, so I decided, well, I'm not gonna let my viewing of it go to waste, so I thought I'd stop on by to just do a solo review of Survival 1990, which I think came out on VHS, on the VHS I just showed you guys. Probably sometime around or after 1986, I want to say the movie takes place. Well, the movie takes place in 1996, which is ironic because the movie's called Survival 1990. I'm not exactly sure why it's not called Survival 1996, but the premise of this movie, which stars, what's so funny about this movie is it stars three whole people. You've got some extras and stuff as, looters and vandals or whatever the hell they call them in this movie, but this movie was produced and shot and made in Canada, I would imagine, and the funny thing is, and you can watch this on YouTube, and you can see the trailers that I'm just going to talk about right now on that actual video of Survival 1990. You can watch it on YouTube, and I would imagine a lot of you who watch this review will probably just head on right over to watch Survival 1990, or at least the first few minutes of it, until you get sick of it on YouTube. But I guess this is probably made by some production company, maybe in Canada, that made a whole, one can only gather by this VHS seeing two trailers that precede this shot-on-video movie. I forgot to mention that Survival 1990 is shot on video in the mid to late 80s, and also before you watch the movie itself, there's a couple of trailers that precede the movie Survival 1990 to be found on the VHS that are also shot on video. So for any of you shot on video in the 80s enthusiasts, you're really going to want to check out Survival 1990. That takes place in 96. Not exactly sure why it's called Survival 1990, but whatever. Premise of this movie is, I guess, sometime in, or actually I think it's like October 30th, 1986, I think. There was some kind of a, very like with 1929, some kind of stock market crash over the weekend. Banks closed on Friday or something like that, and nothing was ever the same by Monday. It was chaos. A month later it was more chaos, and basically just economies and governments and everything collapsed, and we're basically back to the caveman days. And this movie follows the events of this one Chuck Norris looking-like guy, and in rat-tattered clothes. I mean, this is 10 years later, after the fall in 1996, after the fall in October 30th, I want to say 1986, 10 years later, and these two people, Adam and Eve guys, Chuck Norris look-alike, rat-tattered clothes, and this blonde, skinny babe with rat-tattered, I mean, it looks like she took her clothes that she's wearing, or what there is of them, I have no problem with that, off of some Native American woman or something like that. Kind of interesting, the garb they have her wearing. I'm not complaining, but the premise of this movie just follows these, at the beginning, follows the exploits of these two survivors, having survived 10 years after the whatever the hell you want to call it, the end of quote-unquote civilization. I would actually call it the beginning of civilization, when the modern, modern day, whatever you want to call it, civilization ends. That's when actual civilization begins. That would be my my input on that. But what's so funny is, and it's really kind of cool, wherever this was filmed, they actually did manage to find like this old, remnants of a rock house. So it makes it look like it was some house that, well, I mean, it is some house that existed, and there's just like a couple walls and a window that exists. Honestly, the production, value of finding this old rock house, couple walls or whatever the hell they find, and the majority of the movie taking place in there. They have a little, that's where they live, sleep up against the wall, and have the little fire pit there where they make dinner and stuff. So, and then this guy has this one book that he, his car was full of books, and he just grabbed one book, and he just torments this blonde babe with reading this book over and over and over. And honestly, my intention was to watch this and just laugh at it and do a review about it. But honestly, having revisited it again, probably for the first time in 20 years or more, there's a quaintness about it, And honestly, the scenario is not incompetently written. The acting, for being a shot-on-video movie, is not incompetent. So we just followed the exploits of this guy and girl, and not long after the movie starts, we'll see the guy, a little bit of an action scene where the guy fights off some scavengers or whatever the hell they're called in this movie, and then not long after that, some guy in military fatigues will show up and take him hostage. At first you don't know what's going to happen, and then they quote-unquote poison him with this clever salt gag that's really not salt, and they tie him up. Then they tie the military fatigue guy up, and and then at some point they untie him, and then the guy unties him, and the girl's not too happy with that. And so this whole movie, just these guys kind of all join forces, all three of these individuals, and it's kind of them against the world, and the scavengers, and whatever the hell they want to call them, that appear every now and then. And some interesting, obviously this movie is like zero budget, so you've got three people. It's filmed in the wilderness, and I have no problem with being filmed in the wilderness in the summer. Very beautiful, even for a shot-on-video, standard definition movie. Very actually beautiful scenery shot in the summer, just out in the woods in this former, ruins of the rock house or whatever. But, obviously with a movie like this that has no budget, it's going to be driven by dialogue, and that's the thing that I think, having revisited this movie again, that this movie's biggest strengths are probably the not incompetently written story, scenario, and dialogue, and the relatively decent, delivery of it and stuff. So we just get to, we can't see all of this stuff, obviously, cities and ruins and this and that, so we just have to have the dialogue. The Chuck Norris lookalike guy just basically tell the viewer this. And what's interesting, convenient for the viewer, is that this blonde chick has no memory. She's like got amnesia, and from what I understand, maybe she was sleeping somewhere too close to a nuclear reactor when it melted down or went bad or whatever, and she got radiated. And when the guy says when he found her, her skin was purple. I don't know how she survived, but that's another story. Maybe he mentioned that, maybe he didn't. But as a result of, being too close to this nuclear reactor when it melted down or whatever the hell happened, she lost her memory. And what's so funny is, in this movie, she's basically regarded as, and called at least maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the movie, like a mutant. And to look at her, you wouldn't think she's a mutant. But so I don't even know why she's like regarded as a mutant. Maybe anyone who was too close to a nuclear reactor when it melted down and lost their memory is a mutant now. And once again, going by the low budget constraints of having no money, we're going to have this mutant woman who's got no physical characteristics whatsoever of being a mutant, because we have no money to actually make her a mutant visually. We'll just simply call her a mutant, and this is why, because she can't remember that once upon a time people mowed their lawns, or people had lawns to mow at all, and you know, the thing that and people went to work, and people, you know, lived on cul-de-sacs, and they drove their Honda Civics back and forth to work, and life was great. And the only reason lawnmowers even come up in the movie is because this guy, when he thwarts off some scavengers or whatever the hell they're called early on in the movie, he's one of the guys he's actually got a gun. Where he keeps getting his bullets, we have no idea, but this guy's actually got a gun, and he kills people that try to steal from them or harm them or whatever. And one of the people he kills or whatever had a lawnmower blade. So this is, you know, 10 years after the fall of civilization, people are using lawnmower blades for weapons and stuff. And she's like, what's a lawnmower? And kind of makes you think of Jason X, like, what's a bike? But yeah, it quickly becomes evident that this woman has no memory, and because of that, she's called a mutant. So yeah, she's a pretty hot looking mutant, but that's basically the premise. You know, this one military fatigue guy that shows up. Originally you think there's going to be some problems. I mean, you can't just show this guy and girl just living for freaking 80 minutes. You got to have something happen. And you know, it's honestly, when you know, the word quaint keeps coming back to my mind when I think of this movie. Like, it's, you know, it's shot on video, it's no budget, you know, but I mean, it's got a quaintness about it. And as I said, the scenario and the dialogue and even the acting for a shot on video movie is competent enough. And I just, you know, it just transported me back to the 80s, and it does make you wonder what I would have thought of this, you know, if I'd seen it as a, you know, 9 or 10-year-old, 11-year-old, something like that. You know, that would have been like a couple years after it would have come out on home video. And yeah, Survival, 1990. I think I can go as high as 2 stars out of 4 stars for Survival, 1990. Basically because it's just filmed out in the boondocks, in the woods, in the, you know, summertime somewhere, presumably in Canada, and it's just got a quaintness to it. And I think, you know, the thing that I've often said about low budget or no budget movies is that because of their low budget, you got to shoot within your means. And obviously this movie did shoot within its means, just basically within a radius that wasn't very big, mostly in this dilapidated, you know, 2 walls left of this rock house with the window, and just streams. And you know, there's this kind of, you know, sexy scene where the blonde gets naked. You don't really see her nudity. I wouldn't even know what this is even rated, if it's probably not even rated anything, but kind of a, you know, risque scene of her bathing, kind of like Adrienne Barbeau in Swamp Thing. Of course, in a certain version of a certain European cut of that, you get to see the titties of Adrienne Barbeau. But similar to that, you know, the U.S. version where you know, she's bathing in a bit of water, but you don't see anything. Oh, one thing I don't want to forget to mention also is that there's a really kind of cool plot point, which I think they screwed up and really didn't use good enough throughout the course of this 80-minute movie, where it's basically just dialogue because they have no money to do anything else. This Chuck Norris lookalike guy, somehow the conversation came up about cloning, or the cloning or this and that. So then it kind of puts the idea of cloning in the viewer's mind. And throughout the course of this movie, there's some lurker guy in the woods that's like watching the woman. And some point, maybe towards midway point or more into the movie, it's found out that this lurker guy, she gets a good look at him, and it looks exactly like the guy she's living with, you know, the Chuck Norris guy. And towards the end of the movie, in the big action-packed, you know, battle with the scavengers or whatever the hell they're called, the Chuck Norris guy looks like he dies, and then she goes off and meets the clone, and the guy's like, oh, I've missed you or whatever. So I thought it'd be really cool if the guy she'd been living with this whole time was the clone and this was the real guy, but they don't do that. Some guy axes him in the back, and that guy dies, you know, the clone, and then she goes back to the other guy, and it turns out he's alive, happily ever after. I think, you know, the movie ends with all 3 of them surviving or whatever, and just, you know, whatever. It kind of ends like it began, except for instead of just him and her, it's him and her, and I want to say the military fatigue guy as well. Kind of an interesting detail, the main Chuck Norris lookalike guy actually keeps, I think through the majority of the movie, if not the whole movie, there's a key around his neck, car key, and you kind of wonder what the hell that's about. Maybe it's a key to a lockbox they have buried or something. But since there's 80 minutes of nothing to do but talk, where it's found out just through dialogue at some point that this is the key to his 1986 Honda Civic, I want to say, that for some reason he just can't part with. I just think that's kind of an interesting, like, you know, I wonder whose idea that plot point was. Like, ooh, let's make this really cool, and we'll have this guy unable to part with. He makes a necklace out of a Honda Civic car key, but you know that's the kind of movie this is. You know, they don't have enough money to do anything else, so we'll make jewelry out of car keys and whatever. And I gotta tell you, like I say, there's at least I searched it on YouTube before I did this video, and there's at least 2 different versions of this. So I would imagine, you know, there's not going to be much copyright issue with this movie. So I would imagine that, you know, one or both of them would stay up. Please feel free to go out and go over, not go out, but go over and check out Survival 1990 on YouTube. See if you agree. I mean, I think a lot of people think, you know, probably won't be able to get through it, which is understandable, but see if any of you agree that it does have this quaintness to it that is actually kind of, I mean, you know, it's a competent quaintness or whatever. So I guess that'll pretty much do it for my review of Survival 1990. As I said, a whopping 2 stars out of 4 stars, mostly just because of just being filmed in the beautiful summer wilderness woods, and I think having a relatively competent, you know, script, I guess, screenplay, whatever the hell you want to call it, teleplay, video play. Yeah, if you've got 80 extra minutes to spare, maybe check out Survival 1990 and perhaps get back to me in the comments of what you thought about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video.